With the true story of an insecurity addict. How are you, Rebecca?
How are
we haven't
you?
met, so sit down. So Freak is, why are you here tonight? You're not here to argue about the MTA.
I'm not. I'm not here to argue about the MTA. No, I wrote a memoir about myself, and
I was just doing one on me.
really?
Yeah.
There you go.
Put that in writing. Did you hear what I was saying?
No.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
There you go.
She was out there. She couldn't hear.
No, I was standing out there.
Yeah.
They were putting the mic on me.
So what was your memoir about?
It's about myself, and I am an abuse victim, and I have counseled different abuse victims and
Sexual abuse or
everything, everything.
You were sexually abused?
I was sexually abused.
By a relative?
Yeah,
I'm a
several
survivor
relatives.
also.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, then you're a brother of circumstance.
Yeah.
Good for
Yeah.
you.
So what happened with your memoirs? Now let's go back to that because that's the umbrella of it.
Right. Well, I'm pretty good at helping other abuse victims. They usually give me pretty violent ones and the really upset ones, and I'm very blunt and very forward, you know, with everything that happened to me. And for years, people were saying you should write it down, you should write it down and get it published. And so that's what this is, and that's what I've done.
So what is the circumstance? What happened with you?
Well,
How old were you?
The one that I first remembered before traumatic amnesia, sexually anyway, was 13 years old.
Yeah. Me too.
With
I was
13, it's a popular number. I don't know why.
I'm
it's
sorry.
a very popular
sorry.
age.
What happened to you?
But I had traumatic amnesia when I was 8 and 9 years old, and my therapist had told me, be careful because trauma unlocks trauma. And when I was putting my teenage son through rehab, it turns out he was a severe addict, had a heart attack when he was 14 years old, and cocaine, just about everything. And all I thought was he was smoking some weed, which I wasn't happy with.
Yeah.
But once we got him into rehab, we found out how bad it was. And so my therapist told me, she said, now you've got the traumatic amnesia, and you're going through trauma right now. So the trauma might unlock trauma. So one day I was taking a shower, and I'm just washing my hair, and I scratched my scalp with my fingernail. And all of a sudden I thought, it's a cigarette burn. And I almost went through the glass door of the shower. And all of a sudden like that, I just remembered my brother and his friends flicking the end of a cigarette so it would get really red and really hot, and then starting to put it against the back of my skull, because I would go into catatonic freezes. And my brother goes, no, man, Mom will see. And the guy's like, shut up. And they put it against my scalp 5 times. And I remember it, and I did not remember it for 40 years.
Oh, my.
And just like that, the memory just came back. And then, of course, you question yourself, is it really a memory, or is it an imagination thing? But then I remembered that I got my hair cut when I was that age, and the woman combed my hair, and she tore scabs off with the comb. And they were perfectly round, and they looked like little M&Ms. And so that's kind of how it started. And then I actually questioned my dad in my 20s. I said, what made you a monster? Because he was a monster. And I said, what happened to you? Because you weren't born that way. And he just looked at me, and then he started telling me. And a lot of times they don't talk about it. And he started telling me stories, curl your hair. And that freed me in a way, because, you know, a kid will always blame themselves. Yeah. You know, you always blame yourself. If I hadn't done this, if I had done this, if something had been different, if I hadn't been pretty, if I hadn't been noisy, if I had done better homework, they wouldn't have done this, that, and the other. And so a kid will always blame themselves.
Well, why do you call yourself a freak? What's the freak part?
That's actually a joke from my son. When he was in rehab, he was screaming at me. And he said, you need to write a book about yourself. And if you do, you're going to call it Freak because you're such an effing freak. And so, to be ironic, I decided to do it.
So what's an insecurity addict? Someone who's suffering from low self-esteem?
Right. What I called it True Story of an Insecurity Addict because I was very smug in my family, because generations and generations and generations of everyone in my family are addicts. Everybody. My father has actually traced abuse and addiction back in our family 200 years because of police records and newspaper reports. I never did drugs. I never drank. I never had any interest
right?
in it.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
which is really,
Yeah,
really
it's
rare.
rare, yeah, it's
very rare. But I would look at them and I would like, I'm not going that way. So I went through decades of being kind of smug and proud of myself that I was not an addict. But I kept picking bad relationships. I kept picking terrible people to be around and to serve and to be kind to. And then once I got into the rehab that my son was at, which was Daytop.
Yeah.
And the reason that I picked Daytop was they're very extreme.
That's where my daughter's from. Did you meet her
Daytop
today?
is wonderful.
Did you see her?
Yeah, from Daytop. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No, Daytop is great.
Yeah,
Daytop
it's great.
saved
It
my
was
son's
started
life.
by, you know, Sid Bernstein was on the board, who was just here.
Right.
He was friends with the Monsignor who started that. And the program was written 40 years ago by a gentleman who was here last week. We had have a good
great.
relationship with them. You know, Daytop is all over the country. Mainly they have here, the facility on 40th Street is for men. And the Far Rockaway, it's mixed. But the one for women is in Rhinebeck, New York.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, my son went to the branch in Huntington Station.
Yeah, well, George DeLeon wrote the program on it. He wrote Phoenix, Daytop, and Synanon.
Right, right.
So he's the father of community therapy, which is what that is. It's a family disease.
One of the things that I love also about that was they sat down and they said, we're not going to have you give us your kid and we fix them and then we send them back to the same environment that encouraged them to do drugs in the first place. You
Yeah.
have to change.
That's right. So it's parental. It's parental.
Right. And so I'm like, yeah, right, okay.
Well, anyway, I'm glad to be helping you to get your message out.
Oh, thank you very
That's my
much.
job. Freak is the true story of Rebecca O'Donnell. Very
Yep.
Irish.
Very Irish, yep.
I almost said O'Connell.
I know, everybody does that. But no, it's O'Donnell.
And thank you for being here, and I'm sorry of all the tragedy that's happened in your life. It's
Well, you know
sad.
what? If you can take tragedy and you can take that garbage heap and you can plant some flowers in it, then you have something miraculous. And that's what I'm trying to do. I want to help other people like me realize that they can have a good life.